So hello everyone, welcome to this week's YouTube tutorial. I'm Mike Ingledew. I'm all about making you successful with your integrated product support strategies, whether that's identifying software, whether it's identifying the most appropriate standards and specifications for you to use, or just actually helping you develop your skills. And kicking off this week with an apology. I wasn't here last week. I was was told by my wife to take a week off. We've got that much on at the moment, supporting that many customers. Really hard for me to take some downtime at the moment. So last week I did take a day off. So so those of you who did send in an email asking if I was okay because there was no Sunday YouTube video, thank you very much. It proves that I was missed, and I appreciate it very much. This week I'm going to answer a question on IETP Solutions. A couple of months ago, or about a month ago, we did a YouTube tutorial on IETP Solutions, and we looked at the connected IETP versus the disconnected versus bespoke versus something that works inside open browsers, and the future of IETP Solutions. Now that actually has proven to be one of our most popular YouTube videos in terms of generating discussion and debate from you guys. So I am going to, over the next couple of weeks, going to be answering some questions specifically around IETP Solutions. That's why you're seeing some of the props behind me there. I'm not going to spoiler any why we've got some of that stuff there. Hope you like the new backdrop. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. So that was actually one of my days off, believe it or not. But this week we are going to be looking at a specific question that came into us here around the adoption of IETP Solutions. And this came in from an organization that has multiple projects, multiple platforms, many hundreds of thousands of users. And, we are talking about lots and lots of pieces of technical information. And the question that came in was all around, should we be mandating IETP Solutions on our projects? And for those of you who are not familiar with the company that I'm talking about right now, I'm not going to mention them anyway, but they are an organization that is responsible for lots of products, lots of platforms, lots of users, and they are currently questioning whether they should be mandating a single IETP solution across all domains on all projects. And they are actually starting their S1000D journey. Now, I am staying I'm staying away from S1000D discussions here. But we will obviously dip our toe ever so gently into the S1000D discussions. Now, elephant in the room. IETP Solutions specific. Now, the S1000D market itself is actually quite an emotional market for some reason, but the topic of IETP Solutions is so emotive. In the 30 odd years that I've been working in this domain, it's the single subject that generates the most amount of heat, most amount of debate, and the most amount of emotion when it comes to talking about one vendor over another, one approach over another, why you should be using one system and not another system. And it really does generate a tremendous amount of emotion. And, I'm going to try my best to stay away from that. I'm going to stay in the neutral zone here, the demilitarized zone when it comes to fighting around which are the best IETP solutions out there and which are the worst. And I'm going to say right now that it does cause a tremendous amount of debate and discussion when you talk about IETP solutions. Why? I don't know. But, what we're doing here is not rocket science. So the question was, do we think we should be mandating IETP solutions? And I substituted mandating to standardizing. What you're trying to do, or what we're talking about, we did talk on the phone briefly, is that you want to try and standardize an IETP solution across all of your products and your projects. And let's just call it what it is. You're going to prescribe a viewing solution to your users, your information users, which is fine if you think that is what we should be doing. But there is upside and downside to doing this. And, I'm going to kick off with the upside, because actually there is tremendous benefit to doing this. There is benefit to saying to the projects that are out there, don't worry about the IETP solution. We've got that covered for you. Here it is. You can use it on your project, and you don't need to worry about that. We've got it covered. And but there is also downside. So we're going to look at your specific question around your specific environment. Again, if I'm using illustrations and images here, it's because I've taken those photos and I'm just putting them in here to spruce up and colorify my examples. I'm not talking about these specific projects or products that may be illustrated here, before anybody gets all anti. So there are upside. So we can have a single managed solution. So we can decide that for our project, for our products and our projects, we are going to have one solution, and it's an easy one for us to manage, and we can maintain it, and we can deploy it, and we can give it to our users in the way that they want it and how they need it. And that works for our business and for our organization, which in turn should, in theory, lower our IT overhead. And I've put in brackets here in the short term, and I've done that for a very specific reason. That's where these props are going to come into play in the next couple of weeks, is that, in the short term, yes, for sure, we can lower our IT overheads. But if we don't have an IETP strategy or an information strategy, we can actually increase our IT overheads over the years as the product matures, and as the product actually changes in terms of technology that supports the technical publications. So we can reduce the costs by using our requirement for a large purchasing request. So we can go to our software vendors and say, we've got 45 projects that we've got 150,000 users. What's the price? You're going to have that leverage to drive down a price. And for any of the viewing solutions, specifically in the S1000D viewing market, that's a pretty significant deal, and people would be very, very keen to have a good commercial discussion with you, which would reduce the bulk licensing purchase costs of your IETP solution, and we can reduce that and increase that user familiarity when they're moving from platform to platform. So the example that I use here when I'm consulting is that, if one day I'm working on platform A, and tomorrow I've got to go and work on platform B, and if I go to platform B and it's using exactly the same viewing environment for technical publications, I'm familiar with it. I know how to navigate it. I know how to get around it. I know how I can work with it. I know some of the limitations and the shortcomings and the shortfalls of it. So actually, the user familiarity is kind of one of the key benefits there. And we can standardize on hardware. Now, this is actually an area that I get a little bit upset about. So things like Surface Pros here that you can see hiding in the corner here. I've got some viewing solutions on there, very good viewing solutions. But the viewing solutions that are on there will also work on any of the other machines that I've got in the office here. And, so we can standardize on hardware. If we decide that, we want to use Surface Pros, iPad Pros, iPad Minis, whatever it is, we can say we're going to select the viewing solution for the hardware. Completely not the way that you should be doing it, but if that's how you want to do it, that's down to you, and you can do that. But we can start standardizing on hardware, viewing hardware. We can then agree a set of corporate-wide features and functionality. Now, this is often a little bit like herding cats. It really is a little bit of a problem. But, we can say for the corporate, for our wider organization, we are going to have these set of features, these set of functions, and this is what's going to go into the solution. Again, user familiarity and going from product to product and those kind of things. We have a set standard number of features and functions within our viewer, and therefore we can have lower demand on customer support. And when I'm talking about customer support, I'm talking about the customer of the technical publication, of the viewing environment. So therefore, if we have a known user community, and we know what the limitations of use are, and we know, it's kind of the FAQ database, is much easier for us to do on one standard solution than it is on maybe 30 different solutions that may exist within our organization. So it causes us if we are going out for lots of different viewing environments, we might need to have a bigger customer support team, or the ability to support lots of different viewers that are out there, which then leads to lower user level training needs. So therefore, we can train on one viewing solution, and we can have a standard set of training material for that one set of IETP solutions, and we can give that training package to every platform. We can give that training package to every domain and say, here's the viewing solution, this is how it works, here's the training material, you go train your users on how to use it. So we can have that standard set of features, standard set of support, standard set of training around it, and it means that we can streamline our organizations when it comes to adopting that IETP solution. So those are kind of some of the upside. If you've got some of the upsides, comment below or contact me and message me. Be more than happy to engage in a debate with you around this. Now, so where do we go from here? Well, of course, we have to think a little bit about the downsides as well. And there are downsides to mandating a single solution. And projects are limited by the features. Now, what do I mean by this? Is, often when I go into an organization where they're looking at IETP solutions, they've always got an eye on another project that's already done something. So it might be that they adopt the viewer that exists on another product or another platform, and therefore they're going to adopt those features and functionalities, and that might mean that we have to limit ourselves in terms of the features and functionalities that we want to use for our project. So therefore we might need to have a great example. I was trying to stay away from it, is the S1000D process data module. Not all viewing solutions support it, but it delivers a tremendous amount of value add and benefit to organizations that want to use it. So there's an example that we might be limited by the features and the capability of the viewing solution that has been mandated. Scalability challenges as well, because not one shoe fits all feet. We have different deployment needs, we have different user needs. And, I can say that, I've been involved in many projects where this has actually caused the problem. But scalability is in terms of, are we talking about a platform that might be in service for 35, 45 years, or are we talking about a piece of equipment that we might be throwing away in 5 years, 10 years time? There's some reports out right now. The US military is looking at disposable platforms, driving down the cost of platforms that if they were lost in some kind of rule-mon or in some kind of mission, the cost is not, it's much easier for us to absorb. So are we looking at something where we just need a low-cost, affordable, deployable solution, which if we went for the corporate solution or we went for the mandated solution, it would be overkill. But again, we might not have the necessary features that we want: process data module, applicability filtering, all that kind of stuff. We have differences in deployment demands across multiple domains. And this is one of those areas that I can't talk about it specifically, but I can kind of skirt around it to give you an idea. An organization had users that were in remote parts of the world, and they still needed to have access to technical publications, technical information. The chosen viewing solution, unfortunately, was not deployable. They couldn't get it to those individuals, so they had to come up. We had to come up with going back to the old way of getting out technical publications to people, so that where they were in the world, they could still access that content. But the chosen viewing solution was not deployable. They couldn't get it out there, and therefore it caused problems. So we have to think about different deployment scenarios and the demands on the viewing deployment requirements. And If we have a large user community, then often we are being inundated with feature requests or change requests or bug reports and those kind of things. And sometimes some projects shout loudest, they get serviced first. Maybe the project that adopted the IETP in the first place, and maybe they're the sponsor of the product. I'm just surmising. But, you know, if you look at people like Microsoft and Apple, you know, if I have a very specific requirement for what I want to have to go into some kind of demonstration software that I'm using today, you know, if 100,000 people ask for it, there's a very good chance that it will get into the product. If there's, you know, 5 people worldwide asking for it, unlikely it's going to get into the product quickly. So, you know, we have to think about the product development, and servicing our user needs can be a little bit of a slow process. We actually, over time, we actually relinquish a lot of commercial leverage, and you know, so that commercial leverage that we had up front, where we could say we want to buy this great big chunk of licensing, over time that will be eroded the more that we get ingrained into an ecosystem. And that is a great example here. I am deeply ingrained in an ecosystem, 2 ecosystems in this office right now. My camera systems up there is all Nikon, and you know, I'm in that ecosystem. And the other one is my Apple Macintoshes that I have here. You know, I don't know if they still call them that, but my Macs that I have here, I'm deep in that ecosystem. So Apple could release a new machine, which they're going to do this year. They could name their price and I'm going to buy it because I'm in that ecosystem and there's not really much I can do about it. So over time, we actually lose a little bit of commercial leverage and commercial ability to try and drive down cost and price. We are sometimes then forced to adopt other domains, workflows and processes. And this is a real example where a solution has been developed for a specific product and then it's been wider adopted. But the way that it does things like presenting warnings and cautions, or it presents figures, or the way that it works with applicability and those kind of things is very specific to a project. And we are being forced to adopt that for our project in order to adopt the IETP solution. Now, in the main, it might not make a tremendous amount of difference, but if we are being forced to adopt other domains, workflows and processes, it can cause a tremendous amount of stomachache for some of us. Standardized look and feels is not what we always want. One of the advantages of using things like XML and using the ability to have a standardized neutral language is we should be able to transform and transpose that to how we want it to look and feel. That includes our viewing environments. You know, when I'm consulting, I look at the technology of the software that you are looking to adopt, and we kind of deconstruct it a little bit, and we look at the limitations and some of the advantages that gives us. And sometimes, you know, you are buying into an IETP solution that looks like it's a little bit dated, shall we say. And I'm going to leave that there because I've got a tutorial coming up on that in a couple of weeks' time. So the look and feel can not and will not necessarily work for all of us. And because we have this large user community and we have maybe one project having a bigger say over another, or a couple of domains having a better say over another, sometimes that slows down the adoption of new, emerging, innovative ways of working with information, augmented reality, virtual reality, those kind of things. So that slows down. And I can give you a real example. You know, I'm seeing solutions that I'm being shown that haven't developed over the last 3 or 4 years, and projects, because our customers don't know what they don't know. And until you actually show them what's possible, they're never going to ask for the capability that is possible now. And like I say, I'm seeing solutions that were developed 5-10 years ago, and actually technologically they have changed very, very little. And you know, the user base is suffering because of that. And we have this then ultimately stifles innovation. Okay, when we have that commercial kind of trade-off. We have these commercial organizations playing against each other, and I've done a tutorial on the differences of IETP solutions and how terms and terminology is all coming together. The market and the landscape of the IETP solutions that are out there has changed because there's been competitive landscape. So therefore, vendor A is competing with vendor B, so they put lots of features and functionality into their IETP solutions, and then the next one tries to trump it and adds more features and functionality. If we mandate one viewer, then it will stifle innovation, and we will likely suffer in the long term and the long run for that. And these are a political minefield. And I think I said right at the very beginning is that this is one of those subjects that specifically in the S1000D market, for some reason, generates a tremendous amount of heat. And, it does get a little bit, it's quite interesting, get the popcorn out sometimes. But, you have to, try and come at this from a technological perspective and not from a political perspective. And, there are lots of people that will deliberately not adopt things like S1000D because they feel like they're going to be forced to use a specific viewing solution. So they will actually say, well, we're not going to go down that route because we're not going to use that viewer. And therefore, the only people that suffer in the long run are the users of our technical information. And, so we just try and stay away from the hot political subjects and discussions around this. But it is a political minefield, and there's a lot of not invented here that goes on as well around that. But what are my thoughts around this? And, essentially, I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea that at some level you want to standardize on viewing solutions. But I think you should give yourself enough of a breathing space to support your wider community. So my thoughts on this really are nothing more than what we talked about on the phone, but for the wider community here. Have a selection of viewers that you can give to your projects and say, here are the ones that you can use. And therefore they can be based on, complex projects versus simple projects. It's scalability, deployability, usability, type of information, the kind of features and functions that you might want from a viewing solution. Have a way out. I always talk about having an exit strategy to my customers. Have an exit strategy. And a great way of having an exit strategy, and I hope that you've got this from some of my YouTube tutorials over the past, is to use neutral languages like XML. But not only that, then try and use neutral standards and specifications. So specifications like S1000D or DITA or something along those lines, that your information is neutral. And then if it all goes pear-shaped and it all goes south, you can say, you know what, it didn't work. Let's just move to another viewing solution and go to plan B. I do see lots of projects double down. They double down and say, we've made this decision. This is the way we're going. This is the viewer we're using. It's going to work. We're going to stick with it. But have an exit strategy. If it doesn't go right and the user community doesn't like it, then, you have to have a plan B. We have to accept as well, not like in the old days, I talk about the old days, Ingledew, the old days, is that when I was trained to, maintain some of these things, we were trained on the technical publications, but we were trained on the nuances, the gaps, the inconsistencies, where we had to, we were trained for the weaknesses of the technical publications, if that makes sense. But we have to accept that a lot of the users now can navigate viewing solutions quite intuitively. They know what they're doing. They know what icons mean. There's a different language now. It's a subset of our language is icons, and we've got another tutorial coming up on that, right? We know what certain icons mean. And, we can click on table of contents. We know what that's going to do. Search, we know what that's going to do. List of figures, we know what that's going to do. So, our user community is much more tech savvy these days than often we give them credit for. But also we should be looking at getting community buy-in. I am blown away by the amount of all projects that are prescriptive when it comes to deploying technical publications and have not asked their user community what it is they want from their technical publications and how they want it and where they want to use it and why they want to use it. And, you know, I was involved on a platform, major platform. They were looking at IETP solutions. They asked me to help them identify a short list of IETP solutions. And I said, have you asked your user community on what they want from a technical publication? Stunned silence. No, they hadn't. And, you know, ergo, then we went off and did a little bit of a case study, and we asked the user community what they wanted. But get that community buy-in. And for me, it actually makes total sense that you want to mandate or standardize at some level. But it makes sense that you either have a selection of viewers so that you can give your project like a little shopping basket that they can go and have a look at. But also, you know, you want to do that at the project level. I don't want to go from tail number to tail number, vehicle number to vehicle number, ship to ship, and have to jump between different viewing solutions. But I may have to accept that, you know, what works on platform 1 is not necessarily what's going to work on platform 2 and platform 3 and platform 4. But as long as it's intuitive and it's something I can use, then I think we're in a good place. So your question was a really good one. I tried to answer it as neutral and as politically sensitive as I could, because I know lots of people get very upset about IETP solutions. I have got lots of tutorials coming up based on all of the questions that have come in, which is why I've got some of the props behind me. I'm actually waiting on a couple of others to come. And we're going to be doing some on, you know, the changes in information, the changes in deployment, where information's going. So if you've got more questions, get in touch with me and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully it added some value. If you've got some thoughts or opinions on this, comment below or get in touch with me. Always more than happy to enter a debate and discussion around this. Until next time, I wish you a safe and healthy week, and sporting my new haircut because Boris Johnson has let us out. And stay safe, everyone. Speak to you next week. IETP Solutions. Don't get too excited about it and don't get too emotional about it. But there we go, guys. See you soon.